The movie begins with Marine Willard Russell serving in the Solomon Islands during World War II. While there, he discovers Gunnery Sergeant Miller Jones, who has been skinned and crucified by the Japanese, but is still barely alive. To end his suffering, Willard shoots him in the head. After the war, on his way back to Coal Creek, West Virginia, Willard stops in Meade, Ohio, where he meets Charlotte, a waitress at a diner. When a homeless man enters the diner, the owner immediately throws him out. Feeling compassionate, Charlotte follows the man outside during her break, giving him food. Willard follows her and compliments her kindness. Later, Willard's uncle, Earskell, picks him up to take him home. Along the way, Willard gives him a Luger pistol, claiming it to be the very gun Hitler used to kill himself, though Earskell is skeptical. Upon arriving home, Willard is warmly welcomed by his mother, Emma. During dinner, he mentions that he has fallen in love with a girl, though he doesn't yet know her name. The next day at church, Willard is unaware that his mother had made a promise to God. If he brought Willard home safely, she would ensure he married Helen Hatton. During the service, a charismatic evangelical preacher, Roy Lafferty, dramatically pours venomous spiders over his head to prove his faith in God. Impressed by his devotion, Helen asks Roy to bless her. Willard visits the diner again and finally learns Charlotte's name. The two eventually marry and settle in Knockemstiff, Ohio, where they have a son, Arvin. Helen Hatton, on the other hand, marries Roy Lafferty, and they have a daughter, Lenora. When Helen leaves with Roy and his disabled cousin, Theodore, she entrusts Lenora to Willard's mother, Emma. Roy later takes Helen into the woods, convinced that he has the power to resurrect the dead. To prove his faith, he stabs and kills her, but when she does not come back to life, he realizes his terrible mistake and flees. In 1957, 9-year-old Arvin comes home with yet another black eye, which deeply worries Willard. Every morning and evening, Willard prays at a weathered cross behind their house, a cross he built years ago, and always brings Arvin along. One day, while they are praying, two men pass by, openly discussing the vile things they plan to do to Willard's wife, Charlotte. After finishing their prayers, Willard takes Arvin with him, drives to the men's hangout, and brutally beats them. He then tells Arvin that when dealing with bullies, timing is key. He should wait for the right moment and fight back. Arvin considers this the best day he has ever spent with his father. That night, when they return home, they find Charlotte unconscious on the floor. She is later diagnosed with cancer. Convinced that he can change God's will through intense prayer, Willard desperately prays for her healing and even sacrifices the family dog at the rustic cross in the woods. Despite his efforts, Charlotte succumbs to her illness. Overcome with grief, Willard takes his own life, leaving Arvin to discover his body. Meanwhile, Deputy Lee Bodecker is with a girl when he receives a call about the incident. He rushes to Willard's home and finds his lifeless body. Roy hitchhikes and is picked up by a married couple, Carl Henderson and his wife, Sandy, who are serial killers. Their twisted ritual involves luring male hitchhikers, persuading them to sleep with Sandy, while Carl photographs the act and then murdering them. When Roy refuses to participate, Carl shoots him dead. Now an orphan, Arvin goes to live with his grandmother, Emma, where he meets Lenora, who has been adopted as his stepsister. By 1965, Arvin is a teenager and receives his father's Luger pistol as a birthday gift. One day at school, Lenora is bullied for her devout nature and timid appearance. When Arvin steps in to defend her, the bullies gang up on him and beat him. Arvin loves Lenora like his own sister and is willing to do anything to protect her. As they always do after school, no matter the weather, Arvin takes Lenora to visit his mother's grave near the church. Because their preacher is old and unwell, a new one is set to take his place. The current preacher asks Lenora to help make the newcomer feel welcome. When the new preacher, Reverend Preston Teagardin, arrives at the church, the congregation welcomes him with home-cooked dishes for the sermon. Emma, known as the best cook in town, cannot afford red meat, so she brings chicken liver instead. However, Preston publicly mocks her dish, humiliating her in front of everyone, which deeply upsets Arvin. One day, after picking Lenora up from school, Arvin takes her to her mother's grave as usual. This time, however, he doesn't stay with her. Instead, he returns to her school, waiting outside to confront the bullies. Armed with a crowbar, he viciously beats one of them before taking down the other two. He warns them never to mess with his sister again, or he will kill them all. Meanwhile, as rain pours down, Lenora seeks shelter at the church, where she encounters Reverend Preston. He offers to take her for a drive to a quiet spot where he claims to pray. Exploiting her loneliness, he takes advantage of her. 3 months later in Meade, Ohio, Sandy looks through their collection of photographs of hitchhiker victims when one accidentally falls to the floor just as Sheriff Lee Bodecker arrives. It turns out that Lee is Sandy's brother. After chatting with her, Lee leaves but unknowingly picks up the fallen photo. Later, while in his car, he examines it and recognizes the victim as a missing carpenter. One day, Carl and Sandy pick up a young hitchhiking soldier named Gary Bryson. They take him into the woods, take pictures as part of their ritual, and then kill him. Later, while driving, Sandy expresses her growing distress, saying she no longer wants to do this and hates how some of the victims cry. Carl suggests they take a break and rest for a few days at a motel. While there, Sandy anonymously calls the police, reporting that Gary has been murdered, chopped up, and buried in a suitcase. Meanwhile, Lenora confesses to Preston that she is pregnant with his child. Instead of taking responsibility, Preston blames her, calling her delusional, and cruelly turns her away. Overcome with shame and not wanting to disgrace her family, Lenora decides to hang herself. However, as she stands on a bucket, she changes her mind and tries to remove the noose, but accidentally slips and falls. When Arvin arrives, he tries to save her, but it's too late. Later, a deputy informs Arvin that Lenora was pregnant, confirmed by her autopsy. Immediately suspecting Preston as the father, Arvin begins spying on him for the next few weeks. One day, he watches as Preston picks up a girl and takes advantage of her. Determined to confront him, Arvin loads his father's Luger pistol, leaves a farewell letter for his grandmother, and heads to the church. There he meets Preston, confessing his own sins in the same manner Preston once did. Realizing he has been watched, Preston tries to justify himself, claiming none of it was his fault. He insists that Lenora was delusional and that the baby wasn't even his. Enraged, Arvin shoots him multiple times with the Luger, killing him. Arvin hitchhikes and is picked up by Carl and Sandy. When they stop on the side of the road for Carl to relieve himself, Arvin begins sensing that something is off. As Carl initiates his usual murder ritual, Arvin discreetly grips his Luger pistol. Noticing Carl reaching for a gun, Arvin reacts immediately, shooting and killing him. Sandy quickly grabs her own gun, and the two end up in a tense standoff, pointing their weapons at each other. Arvin pleads with her to lower her gun, but she refuses. They fire at the same time, but Carl, not trusting his wife, had secretly loaded her gun with blanks. As a result, Sandy is fatally shot, while Arvin emerges unharmed. Searching their belongings, Arvin takes a particular photograph from Carl's pocket. In the car's glove compartment, he discovers a collection of several rolls of film, likely documenting their victims. Meanwhile, Sandy's brother, Sheriff Lee Bodecker, learns of her death and rushes to the crime scene. Realizing the potential threat to his reputation and re-election campaign, he heads to Carl and Sandy's apartment. There, he finds Carl's disturbing photo collection and destroys it to cover up any evidence. Arvin then travels to Meade, hoping to revisit his childhood home. However, an old man informs him that the house burned down years ago and has remained abandoned ever since. Arvin thanks the man for being there with him on the night his father took his own life. He also comes to the shocking realization that the woman he killed, Sandy, was actually Sheriff Lee Bodecker's sister. Lee discovers that Arvin killed Preston and recalls that he is the same boy whose father died by suicide years ago. Determined to track him down, Lee heads to Meade in search of Arvin. The two eventually confront each other in the woods at the site of Willard's old rustic cross, Lee armed with a shotgun and Arvin with his Luger. Knowing that Lee intends to kill him to avenge his sister's death, Arvin is prepared. A shootout ensues and Arvin fatally wounds Lee. As Lee lies bleeding out, Arvin shows him the incriminating photograph of Sandy with Roy's dead body. He then leaves the picture and the rolls of film with Lee's corpse before walking away. Once again, Arvin hitchhikes and is picked up by a hippie driving a VW van. As the film concludes, he drifts into thought, contemplating his future, whether he will one day become a husband or enlist as a soldier in the Vietnam War. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.